We don't get confident and then show up. We show up, and confidence comes from that. Hi, my name's Steve Kidd. I'm a third generation minister, international best-selling author of 39 books and counting. I've had the wonderful privilege of working with nearly 5,000 people, helping them write, publish, market their books to bestseller, and all the other marketing things that I've been blessed to do over the course of the last 40 years. But what I'm really here today to do is just to help you find your clarity, the clarity that comes from the doing. I just heard in a meeting that I was in that belief, the original word for belief in the Greek, that we, now use as believing in something, some kind of religious connotation. It has to do with believing something in your gut, believing it so much that you take action in it. You believe this chair can hold you. You show your belief by you sit in it. And I just love that whole concept. I really am looking forward to talking to you today about your consistency and the confidence that comes from your consistency. Because unfortunately, we live in a society that has us preparing forever. We're like in permanent preparation mode and never in action mode. And the reality of it is that it should be exactly the opposite. It should be a situation where, because we're in action, we are being prepared. Okay, think about that for a minute. Okay, let's use an example that just came to my head. Joining the military. Okay, when you join the military, the first thing they do is have you go to boot camp, and they're just having you do push-ups and pull-ups and running and jogging and just physically from what we used to call can to can't. 5 o'clock in the morning all the way to the end of the day, and then boom, you go to bed. And especially those early days, you crash out and morning comes way too early, and they run you like that for the 8 weeks or the whatever length the particular boot camp you're at is. I had a buddy of mine, Ernie Villanueva. You've heard me quote his talk about today being the only legal tender weekend's been. He was a speaker trainer for a lot of different sales organizations, but he came out of the Kirby company, and he actually created a whole training course that was called Kirby Boot Camp. And I always think back about that, because whether you talk about Kirby sales or whatever kind of thing, we really need a boot camp. And we talked about in that about how you learn how to shake somebody's hand confidently, how to say hello, how to do all of the little elements of things. And whatever the particular process is, maybe it's a course you've got, maybe it is a speech that you want to give, maybe it's going live like this. Like I'm always encouraging, pick up your phone and start saying the thing, right? I know I showed you my phone, like you don't know what a phone is. I apologize. We need a boot camp. And I want you to think of this in a way as boot camp. I'm walking you through the basic elements. The 3 C's are ultimately really your boot camp for being the you that you're meant to be in this world. Connection. You need to have the heart and soul at the core of you. You need to be that person that wants to connect. It's a must. It's a have to. It's a boot camp item. It's like doing the reps. If you want to know how to do more pull-ups, you got to do a pull-up first. If you want to be able to know how to do 100 sit-ups, the first thing you got to do is do a sit-up. And the more sit-ups you do, I remember back when I was in football, my senior year of high school. There's different kinds of sit-ups. There's a sit-up that you do that's all the way. You go all the way from the ground all the way up to your knees. And that's when you're doing them with your knees bent. There's other sit-ups where you are doing leg lifts and bringing your body up. There's what we used to call gut busters, where you're pretty well just pulling your shoulder blades. You have your hands behind your head, and you're just basically as quickly as you can, pulling your shoulder blades off of the ground, and just bam, 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 bam. And it cuts into this, part right above your diaphragm, that really, targets that specific. And each one of those different kinds of sit-ups target the different muscles throughout the stomach. Same thing's true when we walk. I learned from my mentors that have been helping me with my weight loss that there is a way of being able to walk where we, heel toe regular walk, and that has an impact on us, and it absolutely does. But they suggest doing what they call a shuffle, which is essentially jogging, but doing it at walk speed. So you stay up on your toes, you never let your heels hit. And I'm telling you what, and they also then went on to let me know that at the size that I still am, especially the size that I was when I started this thing, to not do that, because just the weight that I'm carrying creates that same kind of thing. But when you get down to smaller and you're working on your core and those kind of things, that engages your core in a way that allows you to be, even just while you're just doing that simple process of just walking, you're developing all those muscles in there, and it also jiggles you in such a way that it releases the fat and things like that. See, those are boot camp kind of things. Hey, Willie, I'm so glad to have you here with me, and Patricia's here with us. Consistency multiplies. Yeah, that's why the 3 C's: connection, consistency, clarity. Your connection is your heart condition. It's about your willingness, your desire, your want, your needs, your intentionally doing the thing to connect with people. Okay, we don't have to connect with all 8 billion of the people in the world. If you connect with that one person that you're meant to connect with today, what can I do to be connecting today? See, those are boot camp kind of principles. Those are basic fundamentals of, when I say to you, forget about 8 billion people in the world. Who's the person you can help today? What's just the one? I even, and the last couple of weeks, I've gone really deep into a very boot camp kind of principle of you saying the thing so that your ears hear what your mouth has to say. That before you can do the 10,000 hours of practicing, you have to, my friend Kevin used to always say, it's not practice that makes perfect, it's practicing doing it right. If you just practice doing it wrong, you just get really, really great at being really bad at it. And before we can even do that practice, we have to have that belief. That's why I started off right after I did my intro of me with that whole concept of belief is knowing something to the level that you take action on it. You can say you believe in this, that, or the other thing. It can be spiritual. It can be financial. It can be, the system that you teach from work. You can say that you believe it, but it only really is real when your actions line up with that. I said a lot of times these last couple of weeks, if we go live 5 minutes, 5 hours, and we say the thing and we say, I'm convinced, and I believe this thing and I'm preaching this thing. If what I'm saying here to you doesn't show up beyond the 30 to 40 minutes or 20 or whatever I go today, that I'm talking here now, if it doesn't show up beyond that, it's not real. It's performative. Okay, and not performance like what Willie does when he writes a song, learns the song, develops the song. You see, it's all of those boot camp things that when Willie or any other performer goes out on stage, that shows up. That's where the amazing performative stuff is supposed to come from. Unfortunately, we live in a microwave auto-tune kind of world where people want to just be able to, freestyle. Okay. And we see, do you even remember the Eminem movie? I can't think what it was called right now, but it's where he's in Detroit, and he's B Rabbit, in that movie. It'll come to me, but whatever, and they make it sound like rap battles are totally extemporaneous. Like, you don't do any practice, you don't do any planning, you don't do any research, and you just come in and off the top 8 Mile. Yes, thank you, Willie. And just off the top of your head, you're just dissing one another back and forth. I mean, without going into the mechanics of the rap battle, there is that, but there's tons and tons of practice if you wanted to be in a rap battle. Okay, tons and tons of practice at hearing a thing and then responding to it. You don't just decide, hey, I want to be the next rapper. I want to do 9 Mile. 8 Mile, by the way, for those of you that don't know Detroit, 8 Mile is actually the name of a street. Okay, many of their streets are named, 6 Mile, 8 Mile, 10 Mile, and they're set up that way. Okay, little tiny factoid. All right. But it doesn't happen that way. It's the things that we practice. It's the doing that creates the confidence, creates the ability for you to walk out on that stage. And the stage could be huge. The stage could be hundreds of thousands of people. They were saying that Charlie Kirk's memorial yesterday, there was 100 million people that watched it on live stream. 100 million. Okay. Now, I don't know any specific numbers from Charlie's videos, but I do know that he likely does not ever have had a video where he's doing his thing where he had 100 million listens on one video. 100 million people affected. But that came from the doing. That came from the willingness to go to a specific small university, big university, whatever, and sit in front of and answer the questions of a one specific person. And again, and I'm using Charlie as a perfect example here right now, because the answers he gave were based out of the practice that he had done before, the research, the work, the knowledge that he had amassed, all of that private time. It was from the mental acuity that was developed in his mental boot camp, in the research, the study, the knowledge, the learning, and then the practice of not really debating, but more talking and answering questions and answering and being willing to answer the hard questions. Now, I'm not saying that you need to, be the next Charlie Kirk. You need to be the you. And you need to every day, and that's where we move from connection. So connection is our desire to want to do it. We move next to consistency. Every single solitary day, you need to be showing up as the best version of you that you can be during this day that we call today. Can't change yesterday. If you screwed up, if you totally blew it, just acknowledge it. Hey, I totally screwed up. Okay? Sometimes the people will accept your apology. Sometimes they won't. Your responsibility is to apologize if you blew it. Okay? And if you miss a day, if you're sick or, time gets away from you or whatever, hey, I'm sorry I missed yesterday, but our connection, our commitment creates our consistency when we really believe it. If you're not showing up on a regular basis, and I'm not saying you got to go live. I mean, this is my particular thing. It's in that thing that you need to do. It may be, I was listening to somebody the other day that was talking about they were out on the streets just giving sandwiches to people who are homeless. Whatever your thing is, that you can be the best version of you during this day that we call today. And do it consistently because your heart is compelling you to do it. That's your connection. Your consistency is you actually doing it. Okay. And your consistency is going to show up not just in the times you're doing it, whether you go out, okay, again, using feeding the homeless is a perfect example. Whether you spend an hour making the sandwiches and then you spend, let's even go long and say you spend 2 hours handing out the sandwiches. Okay. That leaves the other 21 hours out of the day that is the other bigger piece of consistency. And that's you consistently thinking about those people, praying for their needs, being there for them, figuring out what can I do next? How could I take this to the next level? What could I do to multiply this? I was able to make 20 sandwiches and take it and give it to 20 people. What could I do so that it could be 40 sandwiches? How am I going to afford to do it? How do I finance it to be able to have it be 1,000 sandwiches? And how many people would it take if we did 1,000 sandwiches a day? Now, that's not me being the up leveler that I am, making your vision have to be bigger than what it is for you. Because it could be that one person. It could be that person down the street that you know is homeless and that you know is hungry, that all you do is you just take them a sandwich. You say, hey, is there anything I could do for you today? So what I was talking about in my book, How Can I Help You Today? When we truly look at the world with radical generosity, with the thought not of what's in it for me, but what can I do today? And we meet each person. As Og Mandino says in the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, Scroll 1, I will greet this day with love in my heart. And for every person that I meet, I will greet them and I will say, I love you. Now it goes on to talk about both thinking and speaking it out. It doesn't matter whether it's all 8 billion of the people on the planet or it's just that one person, because that one that you reach, that you take the time for, that you be the best you. You may live like I do in the middle of nowhere. Okay, I mean, there's technically 400 people that live here in town. And maybe in that particular case, you're going to do like what I'm doing and you're going to go live. And maybe 2 people will be watching live. Maybe 200 people will be watching live. Maybe nobody will be watching live. But you're going to see those words, those messages, those long and the short phrases. You're going to see them blow up. And blow up means that somebody, the right somebody, heard it. We've got all these numbers in our head of all the quote unquote influencers who aren't really influencing anybody. Let's be real, okay? The person that you know that's talking to you about how their video made 30 million, 25 million, 10 million, 5 million, a million views. How many of those million did they really help? Even if they were giving away, and like right now, AI is huge. So, if you were to go and do a video and be careful in this, because if you hijack who you are just to chase the AI trend, you're going to crash and burn. You need to be acting in your passion and purpose. But if you really truly were an AI guru and you went out and you did a video on, here's the cool and new stuff that's happening in AI today. Because your title, and if you do all the setup of it right and everything, that video probably is going to blow up. And if you really know your stuff, you may really give some really actionable things. But statistically speaking, okay, 90% of the people are going to watch and never take any action. 9%, okay, so now we're up to 99%. 9% of them are going to casually, passively interact with what you have to say. They're going to give you a thumbs up. They're going to give you a heart. Okay? We haven't even moved into the people yet that are even saying, hey, great post. 99% of the people that are ever going to hear what you have to say, it's the 1%. Out of that 1%, here's a shocking thing. That breaks down to about 80-20. 80% of that 1% are going to be people who are going to engage, meaning that they actually post something on a very trite, passive, low end level. they're going to say something like, hey, great post, or wow, I really like that. Or, maybe they'll be deeply engaging with, hey, how did you learn that? Or what more could you tell me about the XYZ? And let's face it, you could take the audio and you could put it in an AI program and say, give me a interrogative, to create engagement comment to make on this. And then, it'd pop off stuff. Okay, that's going to be 80% of the people. The other 20% are the people who actually listened to what you had to say, actually then took the time to take it in and think about it, and then engage out of that. Now, keep in mind, we're talking 20% out of the 1%. Okay? So we're talking minuscule numbers. Okay? If we went to 1,000 people, okay, that would mean 990 of them, that's the 99%. That means that you have, out of 1,000, you have 10 people. And then out of that 10, 80% of those, that means that the people that are truly engaged out of 1,000 are 2. Now you can build that up and you could go to, wow, and my thing went up to millions. The higher it goes, the lower those numbers actually drop. And I'm just quoting you off the cuff marketing statistics. If you do the work that most will not, then how many will understand you? Right? But you got to do the work. Okay? So we talked about connection, about your heart. You have this heart desire to want to meet the people. You prove that by being consistent. Okay? By showing up. And yes, the consistency in front of them, but more importantly, the consistency behind the scenes. If you're all about, and I don't care what it is, I mean, I used AI as an example earlier. If you're all about AI, then you should be doubling down on your learning and training and your research and your development in AI. You should be on the forefront of that. Okay, and that means that you're engaging and learning and doing things and even trying some things that nobody else has done, not just following like a lemming off the cliff everybody else. It's part of the reason why I avoid, the trendy kind of things like that. And I really would rather see you really identify who's the passion, what is the passion inside of you and what's the purpose beneath that. And then go out and do you. Be the you in the world. And yeah, that audience might be smaller because it might not be the trendy thing. You might be talking about something that even when you think about it, you're like, everybody talks about blah, blah, blah. Or, my real thing that I'm really geeky passionate about is taxes. And most people aren't interested in taxes, but that might be your thing. But I tell you what, when somebody has a tax issue, they're going to be glad that they met you, that you're the person who has the signature talk on it, wrote the book on it, made the book a bestseller, and is out there every single day, not just talking about it. Yes, absolutely sharing and connecting, but also then spending the rest of the day being about it. I guarantee you, for every hour that Willie spends on stage, there's probably, and probably in reality, it's probably like 10,000 hours for every one of those hours. But there are literally at least hundreds of hours. Time in the studio, time spent with God and in the Word and in learning the things that are going on in society. Time talking to people and seeing what resonates with people, knowing them way before you write a hook. And then when you write the hook, then, you play around with it. I've got a song and I'm actually inviting Willie in, cajoling him in to help me write the verse that goes with the chorus of the song. And, and it's like that because we take that hook and then we live that hook. Back in 2000, and Willie, I'm going to brag about you for a minute. Okay. Back in 2000, there was a horrible hurricane that really wreaked havoc on the little island of Puerto Rico, messed it up like bad. Okay. And you can see some reality TV shows where they did home makeovers or bar rescues or things like that. That poor little island was messed up bad. And Willie, with all the things that he could have done in the world, and with his career, beginning to take off and starting to get some traction in Europe, and then of course we have the pandemic, and of course that created its whole own thing. And the capability to be able, for a lot of us, it would have been really easy during COVID to just kind of shrink. That's what the world wanted us to do. That's what the media, the press, the government, everything came in and told us to do every day. Just stay home, wear a mask, even if you're there by yourself, just wear the mask anyway, just in case, you know, wash the bags or throw them out and don't touch them, wear rubber gloves, when you get your groceries delivered, all of that kind of craziness. But during that time, Willie saw that poor little hurting little island nation during a time when the world had nobody that was going and saving and helping people. And he wrote the song and created the movement and did the whole fundraiser that is I Love You, or We Love You, Puerto Rico. You see, that's the not just talking about it, but being about it. That's the other 23, 24 hours or 23 hours and 55 minutes or whatever. That's the consistency. When you are looking around and seeing the thing and using what your passion is to be about it during the day. That's the level of consistency that I'm talking about. Yes, absolutely. Go live, do the thing, go visit the neighbor, go feed the homeless, go write the song, go do the whatever is your thing. But do all the other boot camp kind of stuff that goes with it. Do the reps, do the sit-ups and the push-ups. That's why after you go through basic training and you've gotten some physicality, that's why they still have morning PT. That's why there are standards and expectations for how you're going. That's why they have, dietary setup where the cooks, like what my son was, have a certain amount of, and based on, what kind of people they're feeding is what kind of food they're going to give them. It isn't all about, in case you didn't know this, when you're on a military base, you're not just sitting around eating chocolate candy and, watching videos all day long. It's a serious thing, 24/7, especially and I'm talking about during deployment. And the food they eat and the exercise they do and the drills they do and the times they go out on patrol and all of that, all of it is being about it 24/7. That's consistency. So we have the heart. We put in the reps of consistency. What do we need? We need clarity. Okay, now, yes, there are things that I have that I can offer to you that I want to work with you on to help you really get clear. But clarity starts by doing. You don't get confident and then show up. You show up and you get confident. You don't find clarity by spending the next 20 years in a monastery researching. You show up. You read that verse, and then you go out and you do what that one verse says. I'll never forget, I worked with an evangelist. Her name was Gloria Bonet, and we called her Grandma Glow. Glow is an amazing lady. Glow she was literally an alcoholic when she got saved. Okay. And, but she went all in. She knew nothing about the Bible at all. Zero, zip, zilch. Okay. And was still an alcoholic. She didn't know any better. Okay. And I'm not talking about, the debate back and forth about, drinking or not drinking or blah, 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 or any of that. Okay. I'm talking about she was an alcoholic. Okay. She was a pass out drunk alcoholic. All right. But she fell in love with Jesus. She gave her life to him. I'm not talking about some kind of religious craziness. I'm talking about a relationship that she dove head first into. And she began to read the word. She opened it and she didn't know what she was doing. So she just opened it up and read whatever was there, boom. Okay, page whatever, verse whatever, boom, is what I read. And one of the very first things she read was go into all the world and preach the gospel. She's like, all right. She just went and did it. She was drunk. Okay, I mean, like incoherent speaking drunk. Went out in the town square and started talking. See, that's being about it. That wasn't because she had clarity or the powerful messaging that later on she learned. That wasn't because she had the training and the education that came later that she got. It was because she showed up. And the clarity all built from there. But she reached people that very first day. And I could give you example upon example over both my own life as well as across history of the people that showed up. The people that just saw the thing and did it. Mike Tyson has a great quote. He says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. That's why boxers spend months, sometimes more than a year, getting punched in the face every day to practice so that they can go in the ring for the 12 to 15 rounds, 10 depending on which weight class you're in and what level you're competing at. Could be even less than that, in some of the lower realms. And you can, without the headgear on, and usually in the earlier stages they wear the headgear so they don't get brain damage or get less, so that you can go into that without the headgear on. And you can still have a plan after you get punched in the face. That's why I keep encouraging you to go to live. I want somebody to come up and go, well, that was stupid. Because that's somebody punching you in the face. And then I want you to be able to go, thanks, I appreciate that. Because that's you knowing that's not the person that was meant for. There's somebody else. That's one of the 90 people. Not one of the one. Not even the 9. Okay? In fact, it's technically not even in the 90. It's a whole different subset of people that are just out being trolls. And they don't count, and they don't even have a percentage in that, 99 and 1% statistic. Yes, my phone is going crazy, and it just doesn't matter. Are you getting this? Clarity comes from doing. Now, yes, you need a coach that's going to come into your life and help you. And that's why Willie and I created the Visibility Amplifier community. And you can go to visibilityamplifier.com and you can come in and join us. And we want to work with you and help you get that clarity. But we're going to tell you the very first thing is, what are you doing? You want to be a vocalist? Start singing. Part of the reason why I'm not a professional vocalist anymore is because I don't spend the hours singing like I did. Back when I was a performer, I was practicing 5 to 7 days a week. Well, okay, 5 or 6 days a week, because I was a worship leader the 7th day at church, okay? And I was singing live at church, so we would come before church and practice before the service, and then do first service, second service, and then we have lunch, blah, 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 come back, and we'd again practice before the evening service, and then people would come in and we'd do the worship. So there was a lot of singing those days too. But we practiced 5, 6 days a week, and we were practicing like 3-4 hours a day. And we went nowhere. I'm just telling you straight up, okay? You've never heard of my bands, any of them. There were no album. I mean, we got approached by a studio, and it didn't come together, and that's okay. But the notes that I hit back then, they came from practice, practice, practice. And the notes that you're going to hit in the future come from you practicing it today. Celine Dion, amazing, amazing vocal talent, 4-octave range, or had anyway. I heard a while ago that she was having some voice problems. She didn't wake up one day and go, I'm going to sing across 4 octaves of the register and just boom, nail it right out of the gate. She spent decades practicing scales and arpeggios. My lead guitar player, Ron, the dude was amazing, okay? And he had been practicing. I knew him when he was about 26-ish, when I first met him, okay? And he had been playing guitar at that point for he got his first guitar when he was like 10 or 12 years old. So 14 to 16-ish years. And I mean, I'm talking, he took his guitar into classrooms with him at school, because he went to an inner city school in Flint, Michigan, and they could really give a heck less. And he was just all day long, okay? There's according to what I've been told by guitar players, Guitar Institute of America is the peak performance, top level guitar training thing, or at least it was back in the 80s. I don't know if it is anymore, okay? He was like, wonder what it would be like if I was certified by them. Sent away for their training thing, all right? And, because he was always willing to learn and stuff too. And what he ended up actually doing was he ended up actually being able to already know and play through every single one of the final lessons for each of the classes. So think about it like going to college, okay? And going to 4 years of college. But instead of going for 4 years, he just went to the final exam for every single one of those and did every single one of those lessons. Played them out, just The dude had like 4,000 fingers, I think. And sent it back. Perfect score. But that wasn't because he woke up in his 20s and said, hey, I want to be a jukebox hero. It was because when he was 12, he played, as the song goes, till his fingers bled, and kept playing and kept playing and kept playing. On and on and on. And yeah, I use a lot of musicians because that's the world that I came out of. I can tell you the same thing when it comes to speaking. Somebody said to me a couple of weeks ago, it's like, it's amazing. I don't think I could, talk like what you do. I'm like, well, yeah, but that's because of the years of practice. I'm 58 years old. I've been speaking in front of people since the first time that I'm told I was 5. That's 53 years. And no, I wasn't speaking every day back when I was 5. But, I had a lot of years where I was. And now we're at a place where I'm doing these lives every day. And if you go back and you listen to my first live compared to today, there are some of them that are I was really on. And there's some of them that's like, those weren't that wasn't as great. I can do these stories for writers. Mark Twain was illiterate. There you go, Patricia. Thank you. I'm trying to think which writer it was. I could think of several of them. That's probably why I'm not thinking of exactly which one. That were told by their lit teachers, whatever you do, you're never going to be a writer. Oprah went on to being Oprah. And she was told by a teacher that she would never, ever make it. She was told by her first boss in media to abandon her thought of being a journalist because she didn't have any of the talent and she would never make it on. She had the wrong look, the wrong everything. Stephen King, Perfect example of somebody who said they said you never. And Stephen King says about himself. I love Stephen King because he's like, I'm not. And I forget exactly which high level author he quoted, but one of those really snooty, really heady college level authors. He goes, I'm not that author. He goes, I'm like the Burger King of authors. He goes, I'm just going to pop out the books and they're going to be consistent and they're going to be the same and they're going to be kind of low level and they're going to be for the masses. Because you find that thing you're passionate about and you do it consistently, both when you're in front of the camera as well as when you're not, both when you're writing the book as well as when you're just living through your life. There's a wonderful line from the movie Tootsie, and it's a very obscure line out of there. But, Dustin Hoffman's character is teaching an acting class, even though he's a failing actress. Okay, that's how the beginning of the movie starts. But what he says, I'll never forget. Actors act always. Writers write always. Speakers speak always. Singers sing always. Drummers drum always. Dancers dance always. Whatever that thing is, you need to be doing it. Not just a little bit, you need to be doing it always. And just like that, poof, almost 42 minutes have gone by. Did you get the point? You don't get confident and show up. You show up, and confidence and clarity comes from it. And yeah, there's a whole lot of coaching that we can do with you to help you hone that clarity in and really learn all of it. But the first thing you got to do is show up. Go to visibilityamplifier.com. Show up with us. Join us. It's time. Now is your time. Now we're going to be together again tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk about why most people quit before their breakthrough. And I love this. I'm so looking forward to it because we're going to talk about breakthrough. And there's some fun stuff we'll bring up with that tomorrow. And I hope you'll join us again tomorrow. But until we're together again next time, I want you to know you got this. 3 consistencies, or 3 C's: connection, consistency, clarity. Clarity, consistency, connection. Do it. Be about it. Live it. Have a great, great day. And I hope you have a great week.